I did want to kind of just talk about some of the other themes that are in the book. One of them is kind of this idea of being obsessed with random things, which we all certainly do. I do. We all end up obsessed with these random things. And if you look at it from the outside, it doesn't make any sense. So jiu-jitsu, surfing, archery, rock climbing, music, guitars, NASCAR, lawn, super into your lawn, right? Super into fishing, super into yoga, super into cooking, super into grill. Like there's all these things that people just get into. And that level of obsession could be about anything, right? And that was one of the fun things that I had with Artie. Was I was thinking, what would be the most random kind of thing that you could be obsessed with? How about laundry? Doing laundry. But there's not that much difference between being obsessed with doing laundry and archery. And believe me, I'm pretty obsessed with archery. I spend a bunch of time doing it. I spend money on it. Like, well, why? I could be making super clean clothes. Jiu-jitsu. Hey, we're super into jiu-jitsu. Yeah, we could talk about this freaking skill and this and that, but at this point, we have kind of the basic skills that we need to defend ourselves. We're just doing it for a whole nother reason, right? Lawns, right? Like lawn care. People get fired up for that stuff. So that's something that we do. It's an underlying theme in the book is, man, think about what you're doing. What are you obsessed with? Why are you obsessed with it? We get into some weird stuff.
Yeah, that is weird.
Consumerism. Buying stuff. That's another thing we do. You wrap the obsession around consumerism, buying stuff. And if you've ever been to a big box store, which I certainly have been to many and still go to, or I should say still shop at, because I don't go to them very often. My wife kind of gets that done. But you go into those places and we consume a lot of stuff, right? And here's what I think is interesting. And nowadays, this book takes place in the early 90s, late 80s. I'm going to say early 90s. So there's no cell phones. But one thing that I've found that I believe, and you can tell me what you think. I think, have you ever built something?
Yes, sir, I have.
And that took you some time and effort? What's the biggest thing you've ever built?
Biggest one? Yeah. I don't know. But
that did not come from IKEA.
So what? Okay, so I don't know the biggest thing. That's going to take a while for me to think of. But the thing that did jump out at me was I used to make slingshots when I was a kid. Okay. So you'd go down, in my case, I'd go down the valley, the canyon, whatever. And you'd find a guava tree. I like the guava tree wood. And then you find where there's like a perfect Y. It can't be like too narrow of a split. Right. And it can't be too wide either. There's a lot of those. You got to find the perfect one. Boom, you cut it all three spots, and you bring it back. You skin it, let it dry for a little bit, like a few days or whatever. This is when I went extra on it. I'd sand it down so it looks kind of cool. You can put finish on it. I never really did that. And then you go buy it's called surgical tubing. This stuff. And then you attach them, and then you cut off the tongue of your shoe, of like an old shoe or whatever. You cut it off, and then poke the two holes. Use a knife or even like a hole puncher. It's harder to do the hole puncher, but you do the two holes, attach the surgical tubing. What I would do is I'd do this. Surgical tubing, go in the hole, curl back. I'd super glue it together, wrap it with thread, not too tight because it might start cutting into when it starts to oxidize a little bit, and then tape, like small piece of tape. So it'd be super strong, super strong. Do the same thing both sides, or all four attachments, and boom, there you go. Looks nice too.
How did you feel when you were complete?
Bro, amazing. That's why I do a bunch of them. Like, I don't need like 5 slingshots, but I'd have the 2 or 3 going.
So I think there's there's probably some chemical dopamine hit or whatever that you get when you actually do something, when you build something. Like I've built, like redoing my house, like remodel, like ripping out, gutting my. One time I did my kitchen, and I gutted it, In 72 hours, I gutted the whole thing, demoed it, got it out, redid the electrical, redid the plumbing, put in a sub box. What's that called? I put in a sub box for the electrical. I forget what it's called. But I put in like a whole new electrical system, and then I drywalled it, and I did that all in 72 hours. But you feel like accomplishment, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Building like fences at my houses, I remodeled my other house. So like these major projects, you feel this good sense of satisfaction when you're done. Well, in the modern world, we do a lot less of that, right? Yeah. So you can replace that sort of satisfaction by clicking on the Amazon, whatever, buy now, right? And all of a sudden you feel like, but the thing is, since you didn't put much effort into it, it's not that gratifying, so you want to do it again.
Yeah.
So true. I think that's why people roll into freaking Costco. They roll into Costco and they roll out with way more stuff because they just walk through those aisles getting that dopamine hit, because they feel like they built that thing or they harvested.
Yeah,
it's the same thing when you go hunting. And you like harvest the meat. Super gratifying. Like 1,000 times more gratifying than buying a steak at the store. And believe me, buying a steak at the store is kind of gratifying too. But you get that dopamine, you're like, oh yeah, then this is going to be so good. But it's way less. So you can buy another one.
Right.
And then you buy this and you buy that. Right.
Yeah, that's weird, huh? So it's kind of like when you kind of maybe cut it all the way down to what the hell's going on with that little transaction. It's like, like almost, for lack of a better way of putting it, in the wild or in the, nature, whatever, you put in this work and then you run through some challenges, you overcome those challenges, then you get the reward, right? Any pursuit, that's sort of the system. And your brain follows along accordingly. Boom, you put in the work, you get obsessive over it, you run into a challenge, you overcome the challenge, and you're back on your path to, for that main goal, and the harder you work, the bigger the reward usually, right? As far as in your brain, like the bigger the payoff, so it's like if you overcome all the and then you finally reap that reward. In your case, it's hunting the elk or, whatever the reward is, the prize, right? There, boom, there's your ultimate satisfying dopamine hit, whatever. But now it's the same thing, except you reduce the work part so much, but you still get the little reward.
But here's the thing. You reduce the work, the reward, you get rewarded, but it's less work, less reward. So what do? You do it again.
Less satisfying. Exactly.
Yeah, it's less satisfying, but you just do it again.
Oh, yeah.
Like, cool, I'm going to order this. I'm going to buy that.
Yeah.
And so you end up in this sort of weird cycle of satisfaction by just buying stuff.
Brad, and we've talked about this too, Brad. The people who make the stores, the layout and stuff, they know about that kind of stuff. That's why there's a thing called impulse buy, right? So they put the candy right there by the checkout, stuff that you didn't plan on getting, but it's like, oh, I'm gonna use one of those right now, kind of a thing. It's like an impulse buy. You ever get? I don't see you doing this, but maybe you do. I don't know. But when you're shopping on Amazon, right? And me, I get a lot of will relate to this, where I get a lot of little cables and little tools and whatever, just for this thing or that thing or whatever. And then when you check out or when you add it to the cart, they'll introduce all these other things.
Yeah. People also bought.
And then I'm like,
you're like dopamine.
Oh yeah, I could use that. Never gonna use it, but I could imagine myself using this pair of pliers. So many. I have 2 pairs of pliers, by the way, already. Oh, but that one with the red handle, and that one's kind of dope. And it has a little thing on the side.
I am the most. I research stuff to the point where it's stupid. You trying to get me to buy something? I was looking at someone's. I was looking at one of my kids. Yeah. My kid's Instagram, and my daughter was like, oh, I have an advertisement every third whatever picture is an advertisement.
Yeah.
And I go, I hardly have any. And she's like, no way. And I showed her, and I have like almost no promoted ads. Yeah. You know why? I never click on them, and they know I'm like low conversion. I'm like the lowest conversion ever. I'm not even wasting their money throwing that thing in front of me, because you could have the best freaking idea in the world, and I'm gonna have to research that.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised Amazon just doesn't check me out without showing me anything, because they're just over it.
Don't even try.
Yeah, don't even try.
Not worth it.